You have probably heard this argument before. Dolby Atmos is the future. 5.1 is outdated. More channels, more height, more immersion. Atmos wins every time. But here's what nobody actually tells you. A well-tuned 5.1 system can absolutely sound cleaner, punchier, and more believable than a poorly placed Atmos setup. And that is exactly what this video is about. Not which format looks better on a spec sheet, but which one actually sounds better in a real room, with real content and a real budget. Most people make this decision based on marketing language alone, and they end up either overspending on an Atmos system they cannot set up properly, or dismissing 5.1 before giving it a fair chance. Today, we are cutting through all of that and giving you the honest answer that most comparison videos are too careful to say out loud. Before we get into it, drop a comment below telling me which system you are running right now. Are you on a full surround setup or a soundbar? And what does your listening room actually look like? I read every comment. And if this kind of honest comparison content helps you make better decisions, hit subscribe and leave a like. It genuinely helps this channel grow. The core difference, what these two formats actually are. To understand which sounds better, you first need to understand what makes them fundamentally different from each other. 5.1 is a channel-based audio format. It uses 6 dedicated channels: front left, center, front right, surround left, surround right, and a subwoofer channel. Every sound in the mix is assigned to one of those 6 channels, and the result is a horizontal surround bubble that wraps around the listener from the sides and front. It is predictable, stable, and when done well, genuinely convincing. The simplicity of that design is also its strength. Because every element of the mix has a fixed destination, the audio engineer knows exactly what you are going to hear and can craft the experience precisely around that layout. Dolby Atmos works differently at its core. Instead of locking sounds to fixed channels, Atmos uses object-based audio. Each sound in the mix can be placed and moved anywhere in 3-dimensional space, including above the listener. The receiver or soundbar then interprets those objects and maps them to whatever speakers are available in the room. This is why Atmos scales across very different setups, from a 2-channel soundbar using virtualization all the way up to a full 11.1.4 speaker array. The format is flexible by design, and that flexibility is both its greatest strength and the source of its most common disappointments. Understanding that distinction is what helps you make the right choice for your specific situation. Where Atmos wins: scale, height, and immersion. When Dolby Atmos is working correctly, with proper speaker placement, the right content, and a receiver that knows exactly what layout it is working with, it does things that 5.1 simply cannot do. Rain falling from directly overhead, a helicopter tracking from behind you, rising above, and crossing the ceiling before fading forward. A score that fills the entire room vertically, not just horizontally. These are not small differences. In the right setup, the jump from 5.1 to a genuine Atmos layout is one of the most dramatic improvements you can make to a home theater experience. This is exactly why premium systems like the Denon AV-RX 3800H and the Yamaha RX A4A are built around Atmos as their primary selling point. The Denon AV-RX 3800H supports up to 9.4 or 5.4.4 Atmos-style layouts, giving serious home theater builders the channel count to create a genuinely enveloping 3-dimensional soundstage. The Yamaha RX A4A supports 5.1.2 Atmos layouts and includes height virtualization for rooms where ceiling speakers are not possible. These are not entry-level compromises. They are purpose-built tools for getting the most out of the format. For film content specifically, action, science fiction, large-scale streaming releases, and Blu-ray titles with dedicated Atmos mixes, the height dimension adds a layer of realism that makes 5.1 feel flat by comparison. The best Atmos mixes use the overhead space constantly and meaningfully, and a system that can render those objects correctly rewards you every single time that content is playing. When the conditions are right, Atmos does not just sound different from 5.1, it sounds like a genuinely different category of experience. where 5.1 wins. Simplicity, consistency, and value. Here is where the honest conversation gets interesting. 5.1 wins more often than the marketing around Atmos would have you believe, and it wins for very practical reasons. First, 5.1 is easier to place correctly. 5 speakers on a horizontal plane, all at or near ear height, aimed at the listening position. There are no ceiling reflections to worry about, no height channel angles to calculate, and no risk of upward firing drivers bouncing sound off an uncooperative ceiling. In small rooms, apartments, and spaces where acoustic control is limited, 5.1 delivers consistent and predictable results that a compromised Atmos setup simply cannot match. Second, 5.1 content is everywhere, and it is mixed to work. Every film, every streaming title, every game with surround support has a 5.1 mix that was carefully crafted to sound balanced and immersive on that specific channel layout. There is no guesswork about whether the content was actually mastered for the format you are using. It was, by definition. That reliability matters more than most people give it credit for. Third, the budget argument is real. A quality 5.1 system built around a solid AV receiver and well-matched speakers will outperform a mediocre Atmos soundbar at the same price point in almost every measurable way. Dialogue is cleaner, bass is more controlled, and surround effects are more precisely located because physical speakers at the correct positions will always outperform virtualization and ceiling reflection tricks. If your priority is getting the most convincing surround experience per dollar spent, 5.1 remains one of the most efficient ways to do it. The soundbar reality. When Atmos gets complicated. This is the part of the conversation that most comparison videos skip entirely. A large percentage of people experiencing Dolby Atmos are experiencing it through a soundbar, and that changes the equation significantly. A flagship system like the Samsung HWQ990F, running an 11.1.4 Atmos configuration with dedicated rear speakers and upward firing drivers, is genuinely impressive when set up correctly. The Sonos Arc Ultra, with 14 drivers and 9.1.4 capability, and the Bose Smart Ultra Home Theater system paired with rear speakers and a subwoofer, both represent serious attempts to deliver convincing Atmos from a primarily forward-facing form factor. The Sony Theater Quad takes a different approach entirely, using wireless surround speakers and 360 spatial sound mapping to create an Atmos-capable setup without traditional wiring. Each of these systems shows how far soundbar Atmos has come, and in the right room, each one can genuinely impress. But here's the honest truth about all of these systems. Their Atmos performance depends heavily on room shape, ceiling height, and correct placement. Exactly the same variables that affect dedicated speaker setups, but with less ability to compensate physically when something is wrong. A 5.1 system with speakers you can physically move and aim will always give you more control over the final result than a soundbar relying on reflections and virtualization to simulate what dedicated height speakers would otherwise do directly. That physical control is something no amount of signal processing can fully replace. The real verdict. It is not the format, it is the setup. Here is the conclusion that this entire comparison leads to. Atmos is better on paper, and genuinely better in the right room with the right content and the right hardware. But a well-built 5.1 system will sound better in the real world than a mediocre or badly placed Atmos setup every single time. The format label is not what you hear. The execution is what you hear. If you have the room, the budget, and the willingness to place speakers correctly and run proper calibration, Atmos delivers an experience that 5.1 cannot match. If you are working with a small room, a tight budget, or a space where ceiling reflections are unpredictable, a well-tuned 5.1 system is not a compromise. It is genuinely the smarter choice. The honest answer is that both formats are capable of sounding exceptional, and both are capable of sounding disappointing. The difference is almost never the format itself. This was never really Atmos versus 5.1. The question has always been, which format can you actually set up correctly in the room you have? Answer that honestly, and you will always end up with the better sounding system. Drop a comment below telling me which side of this you land on after watching. Are you sticking with 5.1 or making the move to Atmos? Hit like if this comparison helped. Subscribe so you do not miss the next one, and I will see you there.